It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Unfuck It discussion. It is July 12th. Fucking time is just fucking spinning ridiculously fast, as I always talk about. Tonight we're doing something a little different. We are going to talk about the topic of the moment. There's a gentleman who's been putting out videos that has caught a lot of attention just recently. His name is Harvey Dent, and he's talked about basically accessing your accounts, those lovely hidden accounts that the government owns and the banks own, and being able to use those accounts using your social security number or the equivalent thereof in whatever country you're in as the way of entering and using those accounts. So there's been a lot of hoo-ha, and there's been a lot of questions, and a lot of people have jumped into this hugely. So we're going to sit down and we're actually going to discuss this tonight. We're going to discuss various aspects of it, and I have a whole pile of people with me, which is fitting considering we've been talking about the return of 2013. It's 2013. All over again, apparently. Not really. Not really, but you know what I mean. We've discussed this. So with me tonight, I have Brian Kelly. I have Bob Wright. I have our own Lisa Harrison. And Heather Antucci Giraffe. And Bill, American Kabuki. And Lisa Shannon. So you guys, if whoever is going to turn on their cameras can say hi. Say, hi, Brian, who's looking very purple way over there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Brian, for getting up at this god-awful hour and actually deciding to come on. Hi, Bill. There's Bill over there. There's Bob down there. Where's Lisa? We haven't seen Lisa. Lisa just came online. We might just give her an extra moment to get coffee and stuff.
No, that's not even happening. I'm still in bed.
Okay, but she's there though. Hi, Lisa.
I want to see video.
Not yet.
Yeah, no, not yet, he says. So we've talked about the fact of, and there's Heather. Hi, Heather. We've talked about the fact how the swing back, this loop that feels like of 2013 becoming very, very relevant again. And with that has come, again, a surge in all of a sudden the financial questions are coming up. And a lot of unfinished business, we'll say. A lot of unfinished business. So tonight we're going to talk about, basically going to dig into exactly what is going on. So I want to do a basic rundown of these accounts. And Heather, I'm hoping that you can kind of do a brief walkthrough to explain to people. First off, if anyone's listening now and you don't know what the straw man is, turn off your camera, go to YouTube, go do some research, because this is all going to be way over your head. But we're basically starting on the whole premise of when your parents signed up that whole birth certificate and they signed you over, and that's where the straw man starts coming in, and we have all these lovely accounts that were created. And people have since, I don't know, decades been trying to access these accounts. And now, again, it's coming up relevant. So, Heather, can you do me a favor? Just give us a brief rundown of the kind of accounts that are being discussed at the moment. Because there's a lot of confusion. People are talking about birth certificate accounts. They're talking about global collateral accounts. So, yeah. Just to put this straight.
There's Brian. Hey. Okay, so I don't see Danny anymore. Here we go. We're running a couple of devices here in the room. Okay, so essentially the accounts that everyone's working with right now, they are all just accounts at held at the Federal Reserve banks. Okay. Now there's a rumor, or at least I saw a message that they possibly might have moved the accounts. It doesn't matter. There are so many accounts in your name all over the place, and they're all tied to your social identifier. Okay. Some call it an insurance identifier, and your name. Like I have, I don't know, 6 or 7 names that I have accounts under. Now, specifically this last week, people have been working with accounts that are located at the Federal Reserve, and your social security card that you're issued. Now, I've had so many social security cards issued, and they put a limit on them, but on the back, it'll tell you what Federal Reserve Bank. So I actually have ones that have all these different letters. Currently, I have Chicago is the one I'm using. So it's at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And that's essentially the accounts. Now, these accounts are created, and basically we're all traded like cattle, but they're created when you are born. Okay, that's what the social insurance cards are. That it's a contract that the parents sign into that they don't even realize they're signing into. And your doctors, when you have a child that's born, they're basically the verifiers and taking genetic material from the children. And this has been going on way before science had digital instruments or anything. We're talking old school. Okay. So that is the biological, the biometric security that they actually take when the child is born. And these accounts are opened up, and they accrue a lot of trading. They accrue a lot of capital in them. And not only that, since 2012, they actually have been accruing billions of dollars in them from all the damages that have been done, or excuse me, March 18th, 2013, since all the damages that have been done, because every time they're dinged for a certain amount, very specific amount, for each person that they're prejudicing and injuring. So there's just that, I hope explains the accounts that people currently are using through the birth certificate, or excuse me, through the social security card process here in America, at least. Okay. I don't know anyone who's used their account overseas yet.
There are a lot of people. So there's a lot of groups. There's several groups on Facebook that have been formed that are hardcore going into this. There's some Skype groups, etc. And I know that people are coming together, at least in a way that I haven't really seen in the last 5 years, bringing this information forward. And they're all coming out and they're brainstorming. So basically, because, for example, the information that Harvey Dent put out on his videos, he gave very specific. It's like, you look at this letter means this number means this. And if you go to your card and you look it up and you find your routing number, and there was a pretty straightforward game plan as how you would access things by putting the numbers in the right order based on your social insurance, what the social security card you guys have in the States.
Yeah. So
in Canada, we have our SIN cards, our social insurance numbers. In England, everyone's got the exact same thing. It's just got a different name. And there's been a lot of people working to decipher exactly how those numbers play out, and what are routing numbers, what are the account numbers, how it all plays out. And there's been a lot of people working really, really hard to kind of decipher through all that information. But I don't know of anyone yet outside of the States who has actually had any access.
You know, people were asking me, because I'm working with those in Italy, those in the UK, and we discussed this about 6 weeks ago, began all of this, at least in the people I've been quietly working with. And they wanted to know about their cards and everything else. And so right now I have specific roles that I am doing, making sure all the paperwork's together so that when someone asks you, show proof of ownership of this account, that you have it all, because everyone does. That was secured a long time ago, but it's just a matter of complete context. How would you actually present that data over to a bank who's demanding proof of ownership, or in a recent case, law enforcement?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been working on that. That's why I threw everyone into a new, this room that actually Randy, Shannon and I have been working in, with, so that those answers can be done, because there's some, I've worked with a lot of you guys, and
we're losing Heather for a second here. We may need to just
I would say that
Heather?
you're the best researchers on the planet that I've ever worked with, and because I knew.
Oh, good old times.
I would say, yeah, just, I don't know. Is everyone feeling like we're having deja vu all over again? This seems to be very familiar. Okay, so you said working with others, and then we lost everything you said after that.
I apologize. I don't know what happened, but anyways, I just knew that this is done by everyone. In this moment, this is done by everyone, and everyone has their own unique networks, talents, abilities, research skills, experience with databases. So I just started throwing people into a room that I know are incredible researchers, and more would come in who could get this all done. That way it's not waiting on just one person or a group of people. This is just going to fly. So then I could focus on other things that need to be focused on. And I can say, the message that I have received is that you guys, my network connection's unstable. Tell me if you can't hear me.
Yeah, we can
No?
hear you right now.
Everyone's frozen.
We can hear you.
Okay. Everyone is flying and uncovering too much data too fast.
So I want to go back to the
I
beginning.
mean, that's their message to me.
Yeah.
And I'm saying we either choose to, I got told to shut down the Skype room, and it was either shut down the Skype room or present this to you guys and let everyone make an informed choice. So that's what I did this morning.
Okay, and we'll get into that. We're
Mhm.
going to absolutely get into that in a little bit. I want to talk about, for example, some of the first transactions that Harvey Dent talked about were things like paying bills. And he had a lot of success going in, paying utility bills, paying health insurance bills, the outstanding bills. And it seemed to not matter how outstanding they were. He was going in, he was having success. The first people that were going into this, that's exactly what they were doing. They were paying off bills. There was a lot of success that was happening immediately. And then apparently at some point in time around mid last week, something changed. Whether it's one of those things, too many people touched the screen, and all of a sudden it sent up like serious red flags. And we've seen this happen before. We've seen this happen before in a completely different realm, but again, to deal with the birth certificates, and it happened in 2011, 2012, where someone got the formula out. You could go in, you could find your accounts, you could see them, you could see everything, you could dig it all up. And now all of a sudden, in about late 2012, too many people touched it and they changed it. They just changed the entire formula. They moved everything. And that's what it looks like. It looks like we're seeing right now. That doesn't mean the accounts don't exist. It just means they've scrambled the numbers.
Not. I wouldn't be doing all I've done for all these years if they didn't exist. That's the point. So no, that's not an issue. And I can tell you that it's not even about too many people touched it. What they're freaking out about is that their systems are recognizing everyone. And no matter what coding they're trying to put in to stop them from using it, the coding's going back to the original coding, and so that everyone can be recognized. So now they're having to set up manual departments to intercept.
Exactly. So this is the discussion we had earlier today. And Heather and another friend of ours, Lisa Shannon, and Lisa Shannon got some pretty frickin' straightforward evidence from American Express that yes, they've had to set up a department to literally manually override the system because their systems actually recognize it as legit.
Because it is legit.
But there are people sitting behind desks, and anytime anyone touches one of these accounts, they're literally going through and manually overriding. So basically what we're seeing now is a lot of things are going through. They look like they've gone through transactions, whether it's payments, whether it's been money transfers, look like they go through. And then a few days later, they bounce back. Exactly. And some of the excuses are ridiculous. Lisa, I'm sorry, because you have to tell this. What was the excuse? The bounce back date?
December 31st. 1969.
Yeah. When PayPal tried to send, they send those little test pings into the account. They sent, apparently 3 or 4 different people now have gotten that. They sent the ping on December 31st in 1969. That's what PayPal is saying. And it didn't come back. Sorry, the account doesn't exist. December 31st, 1969, which was before some of these people were born. So, yeah.
Before the internet, no less. And before PayPal.
Before internet, before PayPal, before they could even real online banking. Really? Okay. Yeah. Because we buy that one. We should buy that one. Now, there are things that have been happening, and we've been watching. I've been keeping my eye on this really, really steadily since Harvey Dent's videos first came to my attention. We're seeing certain things play out. People are getting accounts frozen if their branch decides to be that much of a jerk ass. And hi, Don, we can see you, by the way. People are getting accounts frozen. And in the one situation is someone that Heather's been working very, very closely with. They got, I don't know, I'm not going to call it arrested. I think we have to call it kidnapped. Was that yesterday?
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Okay. So
as we were giving them the paperwork showing.
Can you give us a brief rundown of the story of what, because I know that you were testing a lot of stuff with this gentleman. Brian. JC, can you mute Brian for a second, please? There we go. Could you give us, without personal details of what he was doing, just give us a brief rundown of what you were working on with him and what played out. Okay.
Well, first off, we went in to go and look, what can you do past paying for the bills? Because everyone pretty much, Harvey had covered a lot of that. Randy went in and he tested doing the certificate of deposit account where you transfer money over and you hold it there for whatever amount of days that you agree to, but you can always cash out early for a small penalty, as well as waiving the interest that you would have made if you had left it in for all the time. So he tested that successfully. He moved quite a bit of money. And then I was just following along to look at the practical applications for eTech here to make sure that everything was running well as preparing any of the legal documents that people would need in order to show ownership and proof, okay? Title, all that stuff for using these accounts. So then we went in and he said, well, I'm gonna test the cars. He went and bought cars. I worked with getting it's basically a birth certificate for a car. It's called an MSO, okay, or MCO. And walked him through that because he was buying a truck and a coach. Successfully, the coach deal was completed. They even had the cash in their account that was wired over to him. And he had the MSO and he had the coach, but the coach, he went to go learn how to drive it. So we'll get into this because this leads into what happened yesterday. But we were testing that, and then we were going to go in and test homes, for property, because the property on this planet was all secured as well. So that's what I was working with him on. And he wanted to really go in and show people this is real. These are your accounts. Use them, but let's test this out so we can see what road bumps we have and then we could get solutions. That was what we were doing. Okay. Randy had purchased a coach from a coach in an RV company in Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. We worked with them. At first, he had bought the coach in his own person. And I said, no, it needs to be in the factualized trust. Okay, because everyone was removed from that big trust thing into their own factualized trust, which you've always been. It's just your factualized trust was in that big one. So all I did was remove everyone out, and they all have their respective values and accounts. Okay, so no one could touch them. And so he went back to do the paperwork into the factualized trust documents, where that's where all your accounts actually reside for protection, as well as ownership and all that. That's where it's holding it, and only you have access to it. You're the sole authority. So they redid the paperwork. Not a problem. And these guys had the MSO, this birth certificate for the vehicle, in-house, so we didn't have to deal with banks. Everything went through fine. And then I decided we need to update this, because at that point, all of our calls were being recorded and everything else. And of course, I'm communicating real time with people in the industry, the banking industry, and financial districts. And so basically all the I's are dotted and T's crossed. They can't touch me personally, just as far as all the work that's being done. It was just, I was asked to be quiet. And so what they did was they decided we're going to fuck with anyone that hasn't gone through and utilize the correct procedures. And they're taking it as a presumption that you've consented to them messing with you. So that's why I wanted to get this factualized trust with all the underwriting, all the titling, everything of your pure ownership of not just your accounts, but the Federal Reserve and BIS systems. That's what went down. That's what those filings were about. So really, they're just there to facilitate your orders. So that's what we did. We went and updated all this, and we were going to hand them over. I was going to email them. We had gotten on a call with the bank, corporate security of the dealership, plus the president of the dealership. And I said I would update everything, send them over proof, because they need that for to be able to use that money. They need to show what the origin of funds are and the history of funds. Otherwise, they're in violation of all these anti-money laundering laws that they subscribe to. So that's what Randy and I were working very fast, because we knew the pressure was coming in where there might be a possibility of physical threat, physical force. So that's what we did. And then Randy had everything signed, plus the declaration that the whole deal was legit. That was his money. And they had to get to him and basically beat him and throw him into a jail before he could get those documents to the dealership. But I'm already there, and he had already sent them to me. So I continued, even though they had just come in, and I'll let Val and Alex go through that, because they were there. I was on the phone with Randy before it started and during the situation. And I have my own observations, obviously, but I'm gonna let them go into that. So while we're dealing with all this, Val and Alex are on the ground dealing with this, trying to get as much information and identification as possible of who's all there. I was making sure that all those ownership papers were being received by the banks and by the dealership and by the authorities. So this is how we've approached it so far. And that's why they waited to charge Randy, to say what they took him for, because they didn't even have a warrant, which Val and Alex will get into. But I just received information and a screenshot of what they actually claim the charges to be, which is he's a fugitive of a felony, which actually was a misdemeanor way back when he was in court dealing with judges on a whole nother matter. They trumped something up. So I'm not going to go into all that, but that's what they finally went with, because his ownership papers are fucking perfect. Okay. His ownership of the funds, his ownership of the accounts are completely perfect. So I made sure you guys all had those documents so you could at least see them. Of course, they're mine. I put everything out in mine just so that I'm taking the responsibility as far as and then you guys change it up, as we discussed. But that's the summary right now. We're making sure Randy is safe, secure, and they're treating him better, because they apparently physically abused him after he got in jail, while he was in jail, and while he was waiting to enter. They left him in a hot car with windows up in Tennessee degree weather for 3 hours and refused to give him water. So right now, that's what my main concern is Randy and his physical health, and Val will go more into that and a request for assistance as far as physically assisting his body as he's dealing with all this.
Okay. Sorry, Heather, can I just confirm that they've taken Randy and they're holding Randy and they have charged Randy, but the charge is completely unrelated to the coach?
And they seized the coach and drove it by him. So it's completely unrelated. It supposedly is a charge. At first they claimed it was a charge from Jasper County, North Carolina, which doesn't exist. Jasper County, South Carolina does. And so basically, after we sent all that proof over to the bank and to the RV dealer, they knew they couldn't trump up that charge, but that's the charge they went with. That's what, at least what we have right now. And we have the screenshot for that, which I believe I sent to all you guys.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to actually pull it up yet. Val and Alex, you're here with us. Can you come on, unmute yourselves and talk about the situation, what actually happened, because you guys were there.
Well, I guess where do you want us to start?
Well, I mean, I've spoken to Heather. We spoke to Heather earlier about the actual arrest situation. And one of the things that came up is they first identified themselves, these plainclothes people in mass. Apparently there was multiple of them. I don't know how many were there. How many were actually showed up?
At the beginning, there was in plain clothes. Me and Val and Randy were sitting in the RV, and I think there was maybe 4 or 5 of them that started walking up to the coach. And within, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds, there was a unmarked, I think it was like a Chevy Malibu, that pulled right up in front of the coach and blocked it, so we couldn't leave. And at that point, the door on the coach was closed. There was 3 big men standing there beating on the door, demanding Randy to come out of the coach. And I mean, he was on the phone with Heather, and me and Valerie were kind of freaked out a little bit because we weren't expecting any of this. We were going down to Texas to see Heather. And so it got to the point where we finally opened the door, and they grabbed Randy and yanked him out, and they're yelling at all of us. And there was, when 2 guys grabbed him, 1 on each arm, he got out of the coach. Another guy from the back jumped him, and they told him, get on the ground, get on the ground. And they're yelling at us to get out of the coach. And Randy is not wanting to go down to the ground, and so they're trying to trip him. And as I'm getting out of the coach, walking by him, these guys, I mean, they're being pretty brutal with him, and he's yelling and screaming, I mean, at the top of his lungs, because he was, I mean, in pain. They had his arms behind his back, I mean, cranked around. It was just a bad deal. And they ended up getting him down on the ground. Well, it's asphalt, and there was like an edge of asphalt that was about the 6-inch drop off. There was about 2 foot of grass and then a fence, and they finally slammed him down in that little spot. And you know, he went down, and his elbow and knee on the left side caught that asphalt. And as I'm walking past him, the one guy that jumped on his back, he had taken his elbow, and he was just, I mean, just breaking him in the head as hard as he could. Next thing you know, I turn around, and Randy's bleeding on his head, and they got his arms like almost pulled straight up behind him, and they're trying to put the handcuffs on him, and he's just screaming. He's in pain. And at this point, nobody has touched us. They just asked us to move off to the side. And there was 3 guys on him, and I think at that time there was, I think, 3 more standing there, and a sheriff from Coon, was it Coon County? No. Knox County, sorry, Knox County showed up. And as we're waiting there, we're over by another coach, and you know, we're getting Randy's phone and our phone, and the Apple phone of Randy's, it was playing on, I don't know, it was talking to Heather, and the temperature got too hot and that thing shut off. And so me and Val are scrambling trying to get somebody called, and we didn't have Heather's phone number in our phone at that moment. So we're trying to get a phone number for her. And at this point, they've got Randy on the ground, and I think there was 2 or 3 guys laying on him, and he's screaming, he can't breathe. And they're like, you're all right. And there's blood running down his head, and I'm freaking out like, he's bleeding. You guys need to take care of this man. You're being terrible humans. And I mean, it was frustrating. It was sickening. And they're like, we're not hurting him. And I'm like, this is the problem with you people. You don't care. And at this point, you know, we're scrambling, and Randy's phone is locked. So we're trying to find the code, and they finally pull him up, and an ambulance shows up. And at this point, there's another police standing there with a police dog. and he's on the ground, and they're yelling at him to stay down. And if he gets up and tries to run, they're going to sick the dog on him. And I was mind blown, and we were freaked out, and it was hot. I mean, we were standing between a couple of coaches, and it was probably 90 plus degrees out. It was just a bad situation. And they finally got the ambulance showed up, and I don't even know if it was a real ambulance. The more I look back at it, it almost seems like it was all set up. But they got the medics there, and before that, the other guy had gone to a trunk and pulled out like this gauze, it looked like from the 70s, and started wrapping his head. And the medics got there, and he refused medical help. And by this time, they had stood him up and sat him down on the step of the coach. And we were probably 25 feet from him, and they didn't want us to approach him or anything. Well, at that point, they come over and were starting to talk to us, and they wanted us to identify ourselves. And Valerie ended up identifying herself. I did not, and they were irritated about that. And I basically told them, I'm like, let's see the warrant. Let's see the warrant. Where's the warrant? If he's under arrest, there's got to be a paper warrant. And they just blocked us like you cannot imagine, with the excuses of, oh, well, it's back at the office, all electronic. We didn't have time to make a paper copy, blah, blah, blah. Well, at this
hold
point,
on 1 second, Alex. Did they actually identify who they were with? Like,
No,
what law enforcement?
At that point, no. And so I finally said, I need some identification. And they all pointed at their badges, and I just started laughing at them. I'm like, it's a tin piece of tin. I said, that doesn't tell me anything. I want to see some, identification. So the one guy pulls out some identification, and he flips it partially open so I can see half of it. I'm like, I want to see the whole thing. So he flips it open, and it's the Federal Department of, it's a DOJ, and they're the FBI special agents. And that was Parker Still. And at that point, a gal came over, an agent. She was pregnant, which I couldn't believe. It was like hotter than Hades out there. And so Randy's sitting on the couch, and they're trying to get information out of us. They're asking us if there's any personal effects in the coach. And it's like, well, yeah, there is. And so we ended up, they started pulling stuff out of the coach. It's like, does this belong to you? I said, this stuff belongs to us. Some of the stuff belonged to Randy. Randy wanted us to take it, so they started this list. And Valerie, at that point, they wanted the identification, so she gave them the passport. They took down some information. They made this list of items, brought them over. We went through them and basically identified them, and then she signed off on that. And at that point, I had turned around and walked around one of the other RVs, and I had finally got our phone so I could take some pictures and do some video stuff. So I was walking around behind all these cars that were unmarked and the ambulance, and I started taking pictures. Well, at that point, I noticed there was 3 of the detectives had walked around another coach and were conversing amongst themselves. And so I was pretending to be on the phone on one and taking pictures with the other. And I finally walked back over. Well, then they come and approach us about, taking audio and video recordings, pictures, whatnot. And they're demanding us to hand over our phone and Randy's phone. And I'm like, no, I'm like, no, we're not going to do this. And I mean, they were being really rude, really persistent. But the interesting thing about them and us, they never really got within probably 2 or 3 feet of us, except when we exchanged the identification with Valerie. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So once we did all that, I finally got Heather on the phone, and they're standing there telling me I have to give them the phone. And I'm telling them, no, I don't. And I was freaking out because they're threatening to take it. And I'm like, I don't want to end up the way Randy ended up. And he's all, sitting there all beat up. And by that time, they were walking him over to the county sheriff's car. And he probably stood there by that car for, 15 minutes maybe. And they finally put him in the car while we were dealing with the phone issue. And they were trying to tell me that I had to give him the phone. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you the phone. I'm like, what do you want off the phone? What is your bigger problem here? Well, we think that you took some video of us and there's some evidence of the crime scene. And I'm like, well, what crime scene? I said, there's been no crime committed here. And they're like, and I said, that goes back to the warrant. I'm like, where's the warrant? I said, nobody's produced anything saying that there was any arrest warrant. And I said, second of all, half you people haven't identified yourselves to me. And then that's when he got all pissy and he started telling me that I hadn't identified myself to him, so he wasn't going to identify himself to me. And there was like 5 or 6 of them standing around us, basically pressuring us. And I'm like, so what are you going to do with the phone? He's like, well, we're going to hook it to our computer. We're going to download everything, and you can stand here and watch and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, all right, pull the damn computer out. Well, we don't have it here. You're going to have to come down with us. I'm like, that ain't happening. I said, we're not going anywhere. And by this time, Heather's on the phone with us, and she's like, you know, don't give it to him. Don't give it to him. We don't know who these people are. You know, at this point, I think you need to call 911. I'm freaked out. My wife's freaked out. My wife's having almost a heat stroke. So they ended up taking her into the coach where it had been running and the air conditioning was running, because they were starting to freak out that she was going to have a problem. And at that point, Heather's like, you let her go into the coach? And I'm like, yeah, is that a problem? And I'm like, she's like, well, it could be. And I'm like, at that point, I'm really freaked out. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so Heather's like, call 911. And I'm like, I don't want to cause any more stress. I don't want to cause, you know, I don't, they're all in this together. And so finally, she's like, write down my number and have them call me. So I turned around, kneeled down, and got into Randy's bag, one of the possessions that we got back. And I grabbed a pen and paper. I wrote the phone number down, and I handed it to one of the officers. I said, you need to call this number. This is our lawyer. She's on the phone right now. I'm not giving you this phone. You call her. And they absolutely ignored that. They didn't want anything to do with that. Well, at that point, they started backing off a little more, and they were dealing with my wife and the coach. And that by that time, they had taken Randy and put him in the car, where obviously it was hotter than Hades out in there. And like I said, I don't know if it was running at that point or not. And we finally got to the point where the guy's like, you just need to email me this information. You know, basically you can go. And so I walked over to the coach. I said, Valerie, grab your stuff. We are leaving. And we walked back across the parking lot. And at that point, we had drove there with Randy and me and Valerie in his old pickup. Well, we walked past the truck, and I looked at her, and I'm like, we're talking to Heather still, and I'm like, do we take the truck? And it just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't think that's safe. So we walked past it, and we went up to the dealership where the parts department was, and we went in there, so it was at least somewhat cooler. And we were sitting there talking to Heather, trying to figure out what we needed to do next. So that's pretty much the gist of the whole story. And, you know, there's more stuff to it, I'm sure. I do remember the one car that had pulled up in front of the coach, they had the trunk open. And I looked over, and the strangest thing was hanging off the trunk. There was a chunk of log chain about maybe a foot long, and they were like 1/4 inch thick lengths, so it was kind of a medium duty. And it was bolted through the trunk lid the way it looked. And I'm thinking, what the hell would they be doing with that? So I don't think that would have been a rental, but who knows?
That's just strange.
Oh, and then in the interim, one of the bigger cops went over and was standing there BSing with the ambulance drivers, almost like he knew them. So I don't know if it was because they had dealt with each other in the area, or if they are all in this together. I don't know. Like I said, half of the people there we didn't even get identification from. And the one guy that actually elbowed Randy in the head, it was at least 2 times, if not 3, when I was walking by him. He was the guy that was kind of being douchey and wouldn't basically give us any identification. So
Okay, so now Heather was sitting with Lisa Shannon during this going on, and while she was talking to Randy. And Lisa Shannon was quick on the draw, and she started videoing Heather talking to Randy. So we actually have the recording from Heather's side of it, of them actually coming in, grabbing Randy, throwing him to the ground and all of that. Now, Bill also has some other video footage, I think.
Yeah, Bill is actually sending over, he just sent over the first video where I'm demanding that they identify themselves and state their authority to me immediately. And everyone ignored. And I took notes when I finally could grab a pen. I grabbed a pen and paper and started writing whatever I could hear them saying. So I repeatedly would state my identity and ask them to I demanded them to state their identity and their authority. And then I could hear what Val and Alex, I could hear Randy screaming in the back. I could hear the punching, the kicking. You can hear the skin contact. And it was I could understand why Val and Alex were. So what I did was I tried to get them, Alex and Val were my eyes. Okay, so I'm listening to every words that I can pick up. I'm writing keywords that I'm listening to as they're describing to me what injuries that Randy has. Somebody came over and said, no video. And they said, well, what's going on? Why are they taking? All they said was the vehicle's being seized and Randall Bean is being arrested. And they said, no video. And she goes, well, I'm not, here's his attorney. She wants to talk to you. And he goes, I am not talking to any attorney. And the way that he said it is, there's so much going down there, Danny, but from my past experiences in other situations, I know how this is going down. So I just made sure I took copious notes. I'll scan them and make them visible to you guys. But they didn't want to talk to an attorney. And then they asked Val for her ID. And she said, well, I'll give it to you under duress. And the guy was adamant, whoever they were talking to was like, I am not doing any of this under duress. You're not under duress. And she goes, well, I feel I'm under duress. And so they were very good
to tell me how I fucking feel. I feel.
Well, I asked them after when they started going through this, I said, okay, guys, who is there? I need to know if you can identify anyone. What are their names? And there was no identifications on their shirts. She said, all we can see are badges, but we can't really see the badges. I said, look around, look to see any identifiers you can. They were like, police. I see sheriff for Knoxville. And then they were listening to these conversations that these officers are having while it's all going down. They go, we just heard FBI. There's FBI here. And then there was a U.S. Marshal. And I said, what, can you hear any of their names? Jerry Patterson. So they're trying to give me names, right? Joelle Voigt. There was a woman that actually identified herself as Joelle Voigt, who ended up being a DOJ FBI agent, according to her business card, that says Joelle Vihi. So my question was, even if they're giving any identifications, the few that did, are they even real?
Yep.
So it was really a matter of kind of helping Alex and Val through this and have them be my eyes and my ears as I'm trying to take down notes. And they kept trying to lure Val and Alex into giving their identities. You're not in any trouble. I just need to know who I'm giving stuff to. And they're going, Alex called me back and they're apologizing to Val about something. And Alex goes, can we go? His attorney's here. She wants to talk to you. And they go, there are other potential criminal activity going on. We're not talking to anyone. And that's what they said. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. They elbow punched him in the head and it was nasty. They wanted Alex's phone and Alex is going, man, what? And I'm like, are they confiscating anyone else's phones, Alex? Are they? Look around. Are they taking anyone else's phones? And he goes, no. I go, are they arresting anybody else? He goes, no. I go, what about the RVs, those big coaches? They have their computers on wheels and they have cameras everywhere. Are they confiscating those coaches? He goes, no. I go, then don't give him your phone. I said, don't even hand him your phone to talk to me. Give him my number. So these were the things we were trying to control and ease on the ground. Alex did not feel comfortable. He didn't know what to do at that point. Can we take the truck? Because otherwise they got to walk. They don't know taxis. They're in a town that they don't know. And I said, here's the options. I said, do you want to experience any more? And he said, no. And I said, because I can't guarantee that if you touch Randy's things, they won't try to touch you. So they made the decision to walk off the property and go somewhere else so that they could sit calmly or calmer and figure it out of what to do at that point. And that's the information we have.
Okay, so Bill has got the recordings though. And Bill, you're going to release those videos?
He sent one already to you guys, and we're working on the other one. It's just bandwidth out here in the country. Not good.
Okay,
But you'll
so
have them both.
We will get all the video footage. Everything that there is will be put out publicly.
You're gonna get the video footage of the call we did the day before with the bank attorney for the RV place and the president and two gentlemen that worked on site at the RV place. Plus, you're gonna get a 30-minute, because that's only from my side, right? We only videoed me doing the call. Angie was in the room with them when we did the call, and she's got 30 minutes of recording from their side in the room. So you'll get that. Plus, you'll end up with 2 videos of me in the car dealing with Randy and Alex and Val as this was all going down. That's what we have for now. And photos. We have photos. Excuse me?
And all of that is going public.
I'm putting everything out. There needs to be full transparency here. I already gave you guys the documents that were sent over showing his full ownership. So I knew for Randy, the most important thing was to make sure all the I's were dotted and the T's crossed. And that's actually what helped with the charging. That's why they went so long. They weren't sure if we would even send it. And then when they knew, literally 45 minutes after they knew Randy had sent me the declaration signed and notarized for that it was a legit deal. He was the owner of the funds, and he gave them title of his ownership, that they had to act before I could send that over. And then they scrubbed the main email I sent to them with his factualized trust and the declaration it was a valid sale and valid funds. They scrubbed it. I have no record of it in my thing, but luckily as I was sending them, I then forward the sent email over to Archivist. And so I was able to ping on this. Randy and I set it up beforehand that whatever went down, that it was to be made public so that everyone knew. And he's not, he was a little nervous when we went in. And honestly, I was sitting there going, why are they even at the RV place? Because that I did not know. So I thought they were on their way already to come see me. But it was at the RV place. And from what I could get from Val and Alex, and they can give you more detail, but they actually went in to pick up the coach because he had done a class there and they said there was a problem with the air conditioning. So he left it there and then went the next morning with the originals so they could copy the originals of his factualized trust. And they were making fun of, Alex actually followed them in. I'll let him go into that. But there you could see where everyone knew about what was going on, but Randy and Alex and Val, this was completely set up and prepped before it went down, is my professional opinion after listening and seeing all the data that we have at this moment.
And in the end run, you just said you found out he's been charged with a felony, which is actually a misdemeanor that has absolutely nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with the RP, nothing to do with anything to do with this.
No. And that's the thing. His I's were all dotted and his T's were crossed, Danny. That his title and ownership and authority were perfect. So they couldn't charge him with that. But they knew that before going in. They just didn't know if we get them the stuff.
Very, very interesting. So yeah, I've always maintained that in situations like this, going public is the best way to protect someone, because the more people that know, the more people who've posted the video, the more people who've posted the recordings, the photos. That's what guarantees protection.
Absolutely. And I do want to let you guys know, Randy and I prepped for this for days. It went down a little differently than I had expected, that I planned for and that we'd intended. But Randy, I told him all the possibilities, we worked through it. And he said, Heather, this is important for everyone to have done, for everyone to see, and for everyone to be empowered to utilize their stuff. So he was adamant about going through with all this, and he knew we had all the paperwork and authority and everything else. So he felt comfortable going in to do all this for everyone. And I won't say that it wasn't a shock, I'm sure, as everything went down. And that's why I wanted everyone to know, Randy knows he's not alone, but it's so different to experience you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so that is the one situation. We're going to call that the extreme. when we look at all the experiences of what people have been doing, Randy's situation is what we're going to call the extreme at this point. Now, Brian, since you're there, darling, you have been playing around with this as well. You have gone in and tried to access your account. Can you give kind of like a brief rundown of what you've seen or how that's played out?
Sure. Before I do that, can I ask Heather, like for the people that are on this call and the people that watch this and the people that hear about it, what's the best way to support Randy at this point in all of this to ensure that the beatings stop and to get him out of there as quickly as possible? Is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, Randy and I talked about this. Randy and I talked a lot about this before Alex and Val showed up. The best thing he said that he wants everyone to recognize their power, but it's to, if you are fearful, it's okay, but work through it. If you're not fearful, do something and do something about what's going on. He wanted all this data out and really recognize everything's energy. So even just focusing on him helps him for clarity while he's in there so he knows how to deal with things. That's one side of it. The other part is make all the data visible. That was his intent when he went into this transaction. He made it all visible to them. He wants everyone to see every piece of data that he did for this car. That's why we sent it out to you, and have it go out as far as you can. Just let people make their own decisions and their own choices based on the data he's sharing, because you got to go with your feelings and make your own choices. And that's what he wanted everyone to know if it ever came down to this.
Okay. Good.
Okay. All right. So yeah, my story. When I heard about all this on the 8th, I went straight to PayPal. I heard some successes about people linking their PayPal to their trust accounts pretty easily. So I went in and set up a direct bank link using the account number and the routing number, which I believe was the Atlanta, Georgia address. And the account linked perfectly right away. The way that PayPal works is that when you link a bank account, most of the people that have tried to link PayPal have dealt with this issue. You have to confirm 2 small deposits that they send through, which was part of what Lisa was talking about, but with the December 31st, 1969 thing. When I talked to Darius about how he did it, he said, just call customer service and let them know that you don't have access to the ledger or the online banking, and they can do it manually. So I called in. My PayPal, I had some problems with PayPal many years ago from a bunch of chargebacks. It's an unrelated story. It wasn't my fault. So my PayPal is in my mom's name. So I got my mom on a conference call with PayPal, and I said, look, this is we got straight to a representative, and I said, this is a family trust account. We don't have access to the ledger. We need to confirm these amounts. Is there anything that we can do manually? And they said, yeah, no problem. Let's just ask you a few security questions, and we should be able to take care of it. So they asked basic credit report style questions. Which of these 3 addresses have you lived at in the past? What's your husband's middle name? A few random questions like that. 3 or 4 later, they said, okay, this looks good. We'll go ahead and confirm the account. It's like, okay, here we go. So once the account was linked, it said, there it is, Federal Reserve Bank account ending number 6961. So the first thing I tried to do in there was to withdraw funds from the federal account directly to my PayPal balance. Darius had some success with this. He can tell his story. When I went to go do that, it was some kind of an error message that came up, and there wasn't a way to send the account, the funds from the Fed to my PayPal balance. So then I tried to send a small amount. It was like the first one I did was $100 via a friend-to-friend U.S. transfer to Bob or someone, I can't remember. And that went through instantaneously. There was no hold time, no pending. It went through, cleared on his end. Once he got it, he sent it back to me into from PayPal friend to friend. It came right back. At that point, I was like, okay, cha-ching, it worked. So in the first day, I sent one for 100, one for 250, one for 350. They all went through. They all cleared instantly. None of them were pending. I thought everything was good. The next day, my plan was to stage the growth and to see how far I could go without it being pending. So the next day, I sent the equivalent of about. I did another one for 250, for 350, for 498, and all of those went through, nothing pending. And then once I broke the $500 threshold to $650, it said it was pending for 2 days. So what happened was, yeah, go ahead.
I got told by an insider who was basically an economic hitman, I found out later, that anything under $500 just goes through automatically. And that once you hit, it's like 499, you're cool. The minute you put in 500, there's a red flag that goes up and it goes through an automatic process.
Yeah, and supposedly the reason they do that, or at least what they claimed, because after the second day, I sent a little over $2,000, and then I called it a day for that day. I think the last two that I sent had a hold. There was one for $650, but once that one went pending, the one that I did after for $444.44, that one also went pending because the first one was pending. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to chill it out for the day, $2,000. And then I'll see how it goes tomorrow. Well, then the next day, the 3 charges that I did for the first day got all reversed. So every single one of them that had cleared my end, cleared the receiver end. On the receiver end, in some situations, my father had already transferred that balance to his bank account, sent my dad some funds. He transferred it, it was out. And then it was like almost like at the exact same time, bing, 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 I got 3 emails and they all got kicked back for the first day's worth of charges, but nothing for the second day. So it was almost like they're on like a cycle. So like after a certain amount of time, so I figured, okay, well, so if they all got canceled on the first day, the next day, which was 48 hours after day 2 of sending transfers, everything else was gonna go. So that night when I had the reversals, I called into to customer service, and at the time, their story was that PayPal sends the funds, they cover the funds first, and then they just send it through under good faith so long as the account looks good, and then they go later to clear it from the bank. And so what they said was they went to go clear it from the bank, and they weren't able to, they didn't really give a reason. They weren't able to clear it from the bank. The bank didn't authorize the charges. And I said, how is that possible? The bank didn't authorize the charges. That's my bank account. Or it's my mom's bank account. I speak on my mom's behalf. That's my mom's bank account. There's plenty of funds in there. We're the only authorized user of the account. It's not really possible that they could not clear the funds. This is their job to clear the funds. It's our funds. It's our cash. And they said, okay, well, you're going to need, maybe you call back to wait 24 hours, call us back tomorrow. So the next day I called in, they had said, the story had completely changed. Like they had said, okay, so your account was frozen because I went in and removed my mom's Wells Fargo connected account because I didn't want any potential backlash to affect her personal banking. And so I took that off. And then, so they said that the random PayPal security algorithms flagged the account for suspicious activity because of removing the bank and a lot of new charges that came through. And so fast forward, like they said, give it a day, wait until tomorrow, call us back and we'll see what happens then. So at this point, all the charges for day 2 were reversed. So now my account's sitting at negative $1,137 and change. So I call back the next day. Yeah. So I call back the next day, and now the story had completely changed. Now they said It wasn't the bank not agreeing to clear the funds. It was the fact that the account numbers were off. So either the account number was wrong or the routing number was wrong. So that leads me to believe that maybe during that time they scrambled the routing numbers, and the link disappeared. So during this time, the Fed account completely disappeared from the link on my PayPal. So that's where it stands to this day. Is everything that I've sent friend to friend has been reversed. Darius has had some interesting success in dealing with PayPal. I don't know if he's on the call or he can come in, or Lisa can come speak on his behalf. Bob has as well. But as it stands right now in this moment, everything has been reversed. However, now today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm just going to explain. I'm going to, with PayPal, you just instead of coming in with force and these are my rights and this is blah 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 and taking that position, they're lowly telemarketers, have no idea what's going on. They're not reading off any script whatsoever, and the nicer you are with them, the more they want to help. And so I've just been kind of killing them with kindness. And so I'm just going to go and say, hey, this is what happened. We were told that the account numbers were no longer matching. I'd like to just put in the new account numbers, relink the accounts. We can get this sorted because they want to get paid this $1,137. Anyways, they actually tried. My mom's debit card was connected to the PayPal, so I forgot to take that off. So they went in and tried to take 4 separate charges of like the total of like $700 out of her personal account. Thank God she didn't have a lot of money in this particular account. Ooh. So they were only able to get $60 out, but now she's freaking out. Wells Fargo has frozen her account. I'm feeling like the asshole son. So so I'm gonna go back in and just try to relink it again and see what happens, and start, instead of sending friend to friend, start sending people invoices or having people invoice me. Because when somebody, like if you send me an invoice, D, and I pay you, it's a different
process
scenario. It's a different process. Yeah. And then I also received the same strange email that Lisa got and a few others, BZ, I think, saying the next day saying, we had a problem sending the 2 deposits into your Federal Reserve bank account ending 6961 on December 31st, 1969, which is really strange. Lisa made a good point. That's like the random default day and time if your cell phone does like a factory reset. Goes back to December 31st, 1969. So PayPal,
did they do something? Okay, just hypothesizing here. If the system, as Heather said, if the system is legitimately recognizing these as legitimate transfers and everything, are they literally going in and manually doing some kind of a reset on the account, which is why that date is showing up? Because it's the only way they can kind of reset and then scramble in hopes that they can sort something out before you try and put another one through.
I think so. It's hard to say. Like, I think that I don't know if they're going in and doing it manually, because on the first day that I had the chargebacks hit, it was 48 hours after I had started, and they all pinged one after the other. It was like, ping, this one's back, ping, that one's back, ping, that one's back. And it was at a specific time, and in the night that this happened, well, in the night volley time. The next day, the ones from day 2, which is 48 hours after day 2, those all hit at the exact same time as the ones from the first night. So it was like, and it was like a 5 something a.m. in the morning, U.S. time, California or something. I can't remember. So it was almost like they have this, because PayPal processes so much every day. They have this time of the day where anything that needs to be charged back, all is probably charged back all at the same time, like a clearinghouse of chargebacks. Yeah, a clearinghouse of chargebacks. So I don't think that they're not reading that. What I've come to learn through the process of being the detective inside of PayPal is they don't have any script that they're reading off of yet. I'm surprised that they don't have a script for how to handle the Federal Reserve Bank people. They don't have that. They're just, when the telemarketers read that it's a Federal Reserve Bank account, it's like they don't even have the little whistle that goes off like, that's interesting. They have a Federal Reserve Bank account. It's like, okay, well, it's a Federal Reserve Bank account. It's just like any other normal account. So as far as I understand now, you can, once it pops off, you can direct link it back again. As far as I understand, and maybe somebody can speak to it, all the routing numbers were all the banks all use the same routing number now. There's an article that went out about that, which is also very interesting, because why on earth would they link all of the Federal Reserve banks under the same routing number? Maybe Heather could potentially speak to why that might be the case, because as far as I understand it, they've never done that before. And if they did do that, it seems to be making the process a whole hell of a lot easier for anybody that's trying to track down their correct routing number. Because when we first went into all of this, one of the things that was said is that the only thing they can really do is shuffle the routing numbers. Well, if you know where to go to check to see once the routing numbers are changed, obviously there's a lot of volume that happens with these Federal Reserve Bank transactions. If you're going to change the routing number, you better make it public. And if you make it public, then guess what? We can find it, especially considering the amount of researchers that we have in our midst. So I'm going to keep playing with PayPal, because that's the only, I don't even have my social security card. I got to fly back to the United States and on like a recon mission to get my social security card. So right now I'm playing with my mom's and my dad's. But I'm super keen to hear what other people are doing that's working. A friend of mine, he linked his credit card. He paid off his $9,000 worth of credit card. He bought a $9,000 first class ticket back to the States to get his own social security card. He was using his girlfriend's. It cleared all the funds, no problem. It bought him the new plane ticket, no problem. But then he gets a call from the fraud division of the whatever credit card this is. They froze the account and they started asking him all sorts of different questions. So there's a lot of chargeback and reversal stories. And I hope that we have enough time on this call to go into the document that Heather created that we're going to be putting out today to hedge against a lot of these reversals and chargebacks.
But we have all the time we want. So it may be a really call. We don't know.
Okay, cool.
Bob, can you come out and talk about what, because I know you had a couple of really interesting things go on too. And I'd like to get to hear from you about what you've experienced in this.
A very similar experience. I used my Federal Reserve account to, and I linked it up to the automatic payment system for my utility company. What was really good about the utility company, though, is they show a record of each phase of the transaction, from scheduled to pending to approved to remitted. And it all went through, showed the remittance, funds received successful, the approval, everything. And then 2 days later, a request for return and a remittance back, with the reason that it was an invalid account. So I spoke with the manager and I said, obviously there's a mistake going on here, because the funds were remitted from a supposed invalid account. I said, if the account didn't have my name and my account number and the funds, then how did it clear? I have paid the receipts. Remittance was successful. And they looked and they agreed. They said, well, yeah, the money did post, but the bank has said that they have a problem. You have to call the bank. And I told them I spoke with the bank, and I did. I called the Federal Reserve Bank myself, and they literally hung up on me.
I can't imagine why.
I identified the account, and they said that the account didn't exist. And I said, I have paid receipts from that account, and he just hung up on me. So, like as it is right now, I spoke with the security department, and I actually called the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force, and I explained to them what was going on, that I had the authorization on the account, and I had the documentation to prove it. And they said that I had to take it up as a civil matter with the bank. And that's as far as I got right now. But all the evidence is really important, people, because people are seeing things get paid for, even though they get reversed. That documentation gives you absolute proof of the existence of the account. The system, the way it's designed, if there's not a matching account number and matching name, the transaction will never go through. But if it's recognizing a valid account number with your name on it, it will process the payment. And so the fact that your payments are getting processed and you're getting confirmation numbers means that the account is real and exists. And that's something that opens everyone's eyes. When they see that, they're like, wow, where's the money coming? It is real. And it's really important, I think, to document each of these transactions and the ones that kick back. Because in the end, there is no standing authority that the bank has other than to do this like return with the reason of other, or made some sort of made up kind of code that people have been getting, like limited participation, things like this. There's
what does that even mean? Limited participation. I saw that one in one of the chat rooms. I was like, okay, define what the hell does limited participation mean?
Yeah, and it's all smoke and mirrors trying to distract from the fact. And the documents that Heather had just prepared gives each and every one the absolute title and right to use those accounts. Like and the bank has no authority at all whatsoever. They are merely the trustee, which means that they process payment orders, and you are the ones who give the payment orders. So I would encourage everybody, despite what the bank's trying to do, not to get discouraged, because the evidence of proof is really on your side. And most of these creditors and loan officers, and they really want this to work because they're getting, $125,000 loans paid off and mortgages and cars, and they're receiving funds. So it looks really good on their books, and it's a win-win situation. The only entity that is getting cut out because you're no longer using their notes is the Federal Reserve. So I would say continue and document everything, because it all becomes relevant in the end.
Well, this is the one thing I brought up in the one Skype room that we're all in, is that what this is right now is a test. Everyone is testing the system. Everyone is trying different methods. Everyone's going different. Like I said, some people you hook up to the utility bills, prime example. And I know a lot of people have actually had some really good success with paying off utility bills. As a test, it's really important that all the evidence is collected and kept. And that's one of the things I said in the Skype room, is that someone needs to create like a spreadsheet so that things can be documented in. So if someone paid his $300 utility bill on this date in this state, country, and put it through so that the notes are there. And if it bounces back, a note that it bounced back. How many days did it take to bounce back? Because even that's an evidential piece that we need to look at. And if there was a secondary thing, so for example, what Brian was just talking about, where you go back to PayPal and you start working through it again, those notes are all connected so that people can see what's going on. Same thing within other countries. There's a lot of people right now who are deciphering all the codes on the backs of their cards, figuring out the routing numbers, figuring out the account numbers and where it has to go and how, etc. All this information needs to be correlated because it's test, and everyone is testing the system. And I think keeping that information is going to be very, very important, because it gives a body of evidence that we can look back through. People can look back through and go, that didn't work. Oh, but look over here. For example, someone was dealing with this bank and they had no fucking problems. And is it the bank? Is it that bank is doing something differently? Not interfering, or interfering maybe on your behalf because they want your freaking money in the bank? We don't know. It's a test.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Lisa, I was just going to call you were next up to bat.
Well, I just wanted to ask you a question, because you said you've had people who have successfully done utility bills. Do you know anyone who's made a payment or that this goes to Bob or Brian or anybody, and it's stuck beyond, say, 5 days without being reversed?
Yes, I actually have. But what ended up happening was a friend of mine, he paid off his line of credit, and it paid off, but then they froze the account. They closed his line of credit. But they did keep the payment, and it still paid off. But he can no longer use that account anymore.
That sounds familiar.
Interesting. Interesting. So is Darius there?
Asleep.
He's asleep. Can you talk, because apparently he had some success in a few ways too.
About to get on a conference call.
Same story as Brian, really.
So same thing. Bernard and Jim, can you please mute? Awesome, thanks. So we're watching all of this roll out. And it's very, very interesting that it seems like more success, seemingly, and of course, I don't have a broad spectrum look, so I don't know. It's apparently a lot is being done right now. Like we're touching little tiny groups of people, but because of Harvey Dent's videos, they've gone viral. Apparently, a lot of people have been putting their energy into this and testing the system. It seems that more success has happened, at least by my perspective, on paying bills, existing bills, with as opposed to trying to withdraw cash out of the accounts. Again, like I've only got a small bit database of information I'm working from with the people that I'm seeing talking about it, so I don't know if it's relevant or not. It's very, very interesting in the fact that we're back here again, discussing all of this stuff again. And for me, I do have some questions. I have questions that one of my biggest concerns that lit up for me when I first started looking into all of this, when Harvey Dent first started putting out his videos, was that could this be construed as reconsenting to the system? Could they take this, they, the quintessential they, take working through these interactions and attempting on the American side anyways to be able to utilize the funds in our specific personal accounts and utilizing them ourselves, i.e. not them doing it? Could they construe that as implied consent? Implied consent that therefore, if we are doing this, are people then giving consent for them to continue on their merry way the way they have been all along? And that's one of my big thoughts. And I'd like to throw this out there to everyone. Heather, Bob, Brian, you guys, anyone else on opinions on this one? Because this is a concern for me. All the rest of it is secondary as far as I'm concerned. My primary concern is, are they going to try and call this consent if we are working with that system?
I'm not so sure about consent, but I have been wondering about a distraction.
And that's come up too. Obviously, that always comes up. And let's look at that secondary for a moment, because I do want to talk about this consent thing. If, and Lisa and I on the One People Show for at least 2 years talked about the fact of the overwhelming feeling we've had is that it's kind of like the prison doors are open. All it takes is for all of us to walk out. You have to know how to walk out. If the doors are open, are they trying to reshut them again? Are they trying to, if the contracts are all void and null, thrown out the window, are they trying to get us to recontract in?
Well, is Heather still on the call?
She was. Hold on, I'm just
Yeah,
going.
she's
Hi.
There she is.
Okay.
Well, you're probably the best one to answer that from the legal perspective.
Oh. Consent doesn't exist unless you have all the information with which to make a choice for consent.
I agree. I 100%, and that's the whole thing. I completely agree, and yet we've seen them play this game over and over again, and they like to twist their
That's
own
the
rules.
legal aspect, Annie. Legal definition. There is no consent unless you have all the information to make an informed decision. Without informed decision, there is no consent. And if you're missing material facts, like the fact that you own accounts with value in them, you would be using them. So there is no consent. We already foresaw this. You know, working in banking, we make presumptions all the time. As a lawyer, we make presumptions all the time. The whole legal system is built on presumptions, and so is banking.
Yeah.
That was already foreseen. That's why you have the factualized trust written exactly as you do. That's why every single filing was written exactly as they were, so that no presumptions could exist, period. And there is no consent unless you explicitly give it to them. And there is no consent explicitly given, in the event that there are not all the data there, any consent that they could presume or that you expressly give, it's null and void if new facts come in that were discoverable at the time you gave the consent. Okay? That's my official opinion, and it's also the legal definition.
Heather,
And that's good.
how can
Go
we
ahead, Bob.
effectively communicate her position with the bank when they're not acknowledging us, like they're hanging up on me, and every email that I've sent to them, there's no response. You know, how do we effectively communicate our authority of account with the bank?
Yeah. So obviously the only way to communicate a fax number, you don't send it via email, okay? Because I've already had some emails scrubbed from Randy's incident where I sent them to him. Luckily, I archived them. And the archivist sent them back. And then I resent them saying, okay, similar to personally handing it to them and having a conform stamp on your copy that they received it.
How about sending it registered mail where they have to sign for
Right
it?
now, as far as details go, guys, we're gonna have to work it out. I tested that out during the investigations. Registered mail it works similar to when police take evidence, okay? And maybe you'll get where I'm going with this. Where police take evidence, they have to sign in for it. The evidence goes in the locker, and everyone who touches that is supposed to sign in for it and out of it. Now, if we go to New York, they can't even inventory everything because they're taking so much in, right? My point is that, guys, we're gonna have to do this as we go. And we're just going to have to communicate with each other so we've already got, they know their time is over and they aren't going to change. They just aren't. So I don't know what the details look like, guys. Honestly, I don't. But I can tell you my eyes and my heart are completely on this, and I'm watching every single thing and acting with it. I'm not reacting. I'm acting. But I'm listening to myself and how to move.
Heather, would there be, in your experience, some alleged official body that, for at least for the interim, we could run this paperwork through to have a third-party witness with some clout behind it? have them do the linking of the accounts?
Okay. This is the stuff that we're all working on at this moment. And all I can tell you is that on March 18th, 2013, everything went paperless. We moved everything from biometric security to energetic signature security. That's why they couldn't touch anything all this time. And now that you're touching it, it's because when you act.
Oh, Heather's going robo again.
Computer, there are frequencies. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Hold on 1 second. Back up. When we act and go.
What?
That's what the last thing we heard from you was, again, when we act, and then it went all robo. So basically the last 3 sentences you said, probably.
I'm going to need some alcohol if we're going to do this because I don't remember what the fuck I just said. Okay.
I think
I don't even have coffee tonight, okay? Listen, so we're all working half crippled.
I know. I really appreciate everyone doing this, okay? Look, right now, you guys don't get to see behind the screens of all the effects you are having on everyone. So when something comes forward, like everyone's doing right now, they have an action that they take, they get some information back, all right? We don't know where to send things at this point. And I'll be honest with you, they're going to ignore them. I dealt with these guys for almost 18 years. 18 years. And the thing they decided was the best thing to do, especially in 2011 to 2012, when I was doing personal services at Rothschild's headquarters or at Peace Palace, the Swiss version of the White House, or Council Privy, right? They basically just ignore you and don't send responses. So that's why I went and traveled around the world to do the personal services. All that stuff is already done, guys. They already know this is yours. I personally am going in and I keep paying. I keep going in and using my account. If they move a routing number, okay, Brian, if you send me over the routing number that you say they're using one routing number, I'll check it out to see who's got it, who it's under. But we're going to have to work this out, guys, in real time. And I really don't have answers for you in a general template. I don't have recipes. All I can tell you, and what I'm asking for, is everyone's experiences here so we can figure this out, because they know that their last breaths are happening right now.
Yeah.
Fortitude. There's your general template. Fortitude, steadfast, and work through any fear you have and go fearless. Okay? You can send what? Well, do what resonates. Do what you feel, guys. Your bodies are telling you what is yours to do and what isn't yours to do. Or if it's telling you not to do it, you can assess it and say, is it not mine because I'm worried about what it's going to feel like or how it's going to go down, and decide to work through it. I don't know, guys. You're each so unique. And that was the point. I relied on that. We have all relied on that, and that we would each have the opportunity to apply ourselves as we feel to. That's the space we all needed, and that was provided over these last 4 years, and everyone's been doing what they needed to do. And you're making an effect. And what upsets me and what I'm working on now is that you guys get to see the effect behind the scenes that they have tried to bury and keep quiet all this time. You are so powerful, and I'm hearing and seeing all the effects behind the scenes, and I'm giving you as much data as I can as we go through this, data on how to resolve things, or here's what we can attempt, or to say, hey guys, this is the effect you're having, and these are the messages I'm being given. I'm sharing everything that I get, and we'll just have to figure it out.
Okay, so when we talked earlier today, you talked about you got a message from one of your inside guys saying you have to close the Skype room down. Too many people are doing too much. They're going too fast. You've got to slow them down. And basically trying to offer you like a little proxy, like a little, incentive. Like, you guys just do your thing quietly, but don't get all these other people involved because they're doing too much. I take that as a direct effect. But when they say slow it down for and insert X amount of time, 2 days, 10 days, 20 days, 2 months, whatever. Is that an indicator that they're trying to work on something on the inside? Either A, another plan to fucking move the funds to try and make it more impossible for people to get to. What is your gut telling you when they come out and they say that type of stuff to you?
Yeah. You know, just to clarify what I was told,
Yeah.
it was, Heather, you need to shut the Skype room down, the big Skype room. Okay. You need to shut it down. He goes, too much information is getting out. Too much correct information is getting out. People are finding things too quickly. Finding two things too quickly, and they're piecing it all together. And he said, and they're scaring the bejeebus out of all the ones that are trying to manage that it doesn't happen. They said they're becoming too aware. And I said, so you are asking me, and mind you, I'm trying not to burn shit down at this point, but I sat there going, you are asking me to slow down awareness. And he said, yes, but you got to think of the big picture. And that's when all hell goes at this point, because I spent over 17 years of my life completely dedicated to this, to the big picture. And I said, well, we need to, obviously we have a different big picture. My big picture is everyone wins. Everyone, including the ones that are being yahoos at the moment. Okay. Everyone wins. And then it was discussed, that I needed to just go quiet. I could have a room where I could, a safer room was the key words, a safer room, and you can have your close group in there, and you can share the data, and they can do this, but you need to shut the big Skype room down. And I love this being that was telling me this, because I've worked with him, God, seems like forever, and he's someone who has no fear. And yet there is a little bit of fear there for me personally, because we've worked together, and he's worried about me physically, which I don't. I'm totally fine, and I am always going to be fine. But at the same time, I had to consider all the data he was telling me, so I said, let me think about this. So that's why I came and contacted everyone, was I believe you guys should have this data, because I can see their data coming in. I feel their feelings. I feel their positions. And really, it's based on one guy who's very upset with what's going down, because it's ruining his plans. Okay. Everything has to go according to how he's doing it. And he's very strategic in how he's prepping and positioning himself. And he's always been that way. Okay. So I just said, I'll give this data to you guys, and then I'm going to let you choose. You want to get out of the room, get out of the room. You don't want to work on this stuff, don't work on this stuff. You want to go full force or go a medium, I mean, you decide. This is what this was all about. This is what we've been working towards and ensuring every step of our existence. So that's that. Secondly, what was the question?
I don't know. I don't fucking remember. Shit.
I just wanted to be clear, because they're watching this.
Yeah. No,
And
exactly. And that's why I want this put out. Now, that's what, like, full transparency, put it all out. When they say things like, you've got to slow it down, you've got to, this is, it's another indicator.
Yeah. Okay. Indicator. What does that indicate? And what was my gut feeling? I remember now.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
You guys, this is that moment we do or we don't.
I don't know. I don't fucking remember. Shit. Toby, can you mute, please?
It is. I just wanted to be clear, because they're watching.
There we go. Go ahead.
Sorry, we have a whole bunch of helicopters now over the farm, and I can't really hear what's going on.
Black helicopters by any chance?
I don't know. I'm staying inside to talk to you guys. So here's the deal. My gut instinct, this is a done deal. We can do this. I'm fully committed to this. First, I want to clear, these are not trust accounts. These are accounts held in trust. Okay? Everyone on the planet is in their own factualized trust. I make sure. When you guys go in and do this, just feel it through. I believe, yes, there might be an instance where they attempt physical force, but then again, as I told this particular guy that I've worked with forever, who watches my back, who's been with me in Morocco, who's been with me in Italy, who's been with me in London and Hong Kong and everything else, I have abilities that I have not made visible, and I'm going to use them regardless. This is going to be done, period. So my gut instinct is it goes through. Keep paying if you choose to, you feel to do it, because the systems recognize you, and they actually have to go manual at this point because the systems only know us.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to use them. Did I answer your question satisfactorily?
Yep, absolutely. And that's what another friend of ours, Lisa Shannon, discovered as she was dealing with American Express. Is she was told they had to literally create or pull aside a whole section of like a little core group there in American Express to manually go through and stop the Federal Reserve account payments. And then ask her all kinds of illegal questions.
Yeah, we
Which
just
was
moved
kind of humorous for itself.
over the house. They were 4 Apache.
4 Apaches over the house. There you go. 4 Apaches over the house.
I feel like I'm back in Amsterdam.
So I want to change this up a little because I want to take this off of the financial. There's a lot of people who questioned why I would get into this discussion today. And pretty much the lead up of everything I've been talking about, especially on Sunday, on Transpicuous Views, there's an energy now of do. Get out and do. I mean, that's what we talked about on Sunday night, pretty much the entire show. It's time to do stuff. How we choose to do is up to each and every person. Every person has got their own piece, their own passion, their own thing that it drives them forward. Whether it is working on protest for like the mandatory vaccines that are being pushed through all over fucking Europe, whether it is starting a community garden, whether it is doing something that's educational, whether it is, I don't know, building small homes for the homeless. It doesn't matter. Everyone has their own thing. And some people are going to be moved that they want to do this. They want to push the button. They want to keep going, and they want to push these banks hard and be part of this process that works through the mire and the bullshit. But it's going to be up to each person to know what they want and to understand for themselves where their energy is going to go. For me, I don't look at this as the financial. And I'm going to say something here, and I'll probably get crucified for saying it afterwards, but this is not about financial, because nothing financial is about financial. It's all about energy. It's all about us, this thing that we're driving around at the moment. You can look at it like an allegory. And you can say, okay, it's all about these bank accounts, because we all have to live. We all have to feed our families. We all have to pay our bills. We all have things that we would like to do. We all have awesome things that we would love to do. And if we had the cash, all of a sudden we would have the ability to actually really do stuff. Whether it is, like I said, community gardens, whether it is permaculture, whether it is educating the world, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their own passion. But I don't want people getting caught up in this whole thought that this financial question is just about this crappy paper IOU shit that we use fraudulently, because the whole system is fraudulent, to pay bills and feed our families. For me, this is a lot bigger than that. this is so much bigger than that. And I talked on Sunday about the time has come that people need to put aside the beliefs. People need to put aside this cliquing together into groups and being like, okay, we've got the flat earthers over here, and over here we've got, like, you know, the people who are just completely obsessed with the Mandela effects. And over here we've got all this group here, and they all think Nibiru is coming. And then you got this group over here, and they're with the Galactic Federation of Light. And then you got Blue Avians, and you got Sphere Alliance, and like you've got the Catholics and the Protestants and the Muslims. I mean, literally, there's this push right now, and it's hardcore at the moment, that this divide and separate continuously. And I can't work with this group because they don't believe what I believe. And right now, we are at a point where the beliefs are unimportant. And that's my gut. What you believe is completely unimportant. The only thing that's important now is doing what you are empowered and impassioned to do. That's it. And it does not matter that if you're building a community garden, it doesn't matter if the person digging weeds with you is Catholic or a flat earther. It doesn't matter if you're off doing something, whether it's, you know, you're marching and you're fighting the system to take down these mandatory vaccine laws that are going across Europe, the US, fucking Australia. It doesn't matter if the person next to you knows anything about the Mandela effect. It doesn't matter if they know that the government is a corporation. It doesn't matter if they pick a fucking belief. What matters is that people come together and drop the beliefs, drop the categorization that we use beliefs for, and start working together. This is vital at this point. It doesn't matter. The call we had earlier today with Heather and Bill and Bob and Lisa and Brian and the other Lisa Shannon. And I said, you know, like, I don't believe what they believe, but it doesn't matter. And they don't believe what I believe, but it doesn't matter. It's time for us to move beyond these fucking divisions and actually start doing shit. Not doing shit that we're told to do, but do the stuff that we are moved to do in this moment. And I know every single person in the Sunfuckers group is impassioned to do shit. So now's the time to do. And that is the focus of what I wanted to get around to tonight. We have one piece over here that we're looking at, which is this banking, the finance, etc. And Heather's done a really great job of, like, pulling that all out, explaining all the nitty gritty bullshit crap. And for those of you who don't understand, like, I opened this whole up saying, if you don't know what a straw man is, you need to go look up the straw man, because you probably didn't understand half of what we were talking about. If you don't know about the OPPT public trust filings, you can go look up all that and do the research on that as well. Or not. Or you can just do what your heart tells you to do in this moment and just fucking do it. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. We got, if we stick to the 2 hour, box, we got like 15 minutes left. So I want to know, Bob, you got your hand up. Did you want to add something to this?
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to make clear, that each of these Treasury Direct accounts are indemnified with the One People's Public Trust filing by a commercial bill and a true bill. So every time someone unauthorized interferes with your transactions, there is a commercial bill and true bill for each $5 billion that you are indemnified for. That we haven't talked about, but we can talk about how we can use that in enforcing what we're trying to do here.
Actually, Bob, just to make it very clear, We've all been using them every single moment since March 13th, 2008. Excuse me, since March 18th, 2013. They're billing, they get literally billed and invoiced every single time by these systems after we changed all the coding. So that's why all of the corporations are going bankrupt and having to do mergers, is because money is actually being pulled out. And imagine $10 billion being pulled out every time they're prejudicing just one person each day. Now put 7 billion people on the planet into that equation. That's why there's no money. And you have seen major corporations doing mergers, hostile takeovers, or just taking assets and killing the company. That is what has been happening. So we have been using it, whether we know it or not, or whether it was incomplete context or not. It has been.
No, and that's definitely something that needs to be discussed, because that's another aspect to this. So, I mean, there's so many. We've discussed tonight one tiny piece to this. I mean, really, really tiny piece to this. And where it goes from there is going to open up, and we're going to see groups that are going to form, and people who are going to want to go down this avenue and be, okay, let's go look after this, and let's organize, and let's figure out how we're going to do this piece. And then we're going to have other people over here who are going to be more interested in, something else. So I see that we're going to see those kind of groups forming up, and people will start banding together and start putting their energy together into whatever it is that their goal is that resonates with them, and what they want to spend their time and energy on working towards. Lisa, do you have your hand up new, or is that your old hand up? I don't know.
Oh, can't remember. It's been up that long, I've probably forgotten the question.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You know me, I'm kind of bad at reminding myself to look over there and see whose hand is actually up. Tee-hee-hee.
Well, actually, no, I do have a kind of, I don't know, question or comment, not sure what it is. Heather said earlier that, and it came up on the call this morning as well, that we were going too fast.
Yeah.
Which implies that, according to them, there is an end goal or a plan or a schedule.
A schedule?
That they would like to keep to. Too fast and they lose control of the schedule. So, thoughts on what the end game is for them? They want a win-win, which means they don't want to lose. So, if it's to go to a schedule for what? To what end?
I can speak to the data that I have. And I'm sure other people have their thoughts and their data. So I'd love to hear that too. The information that I have is they definitely had this new dress that they wanted to put on. And there were certain folks that they were going to put at the heads of certain departments, if you will. And they need to finish positioning, because they haven't finished positioning in order to accomplish that. They have not been able to stay ahead of any of this. They've tried, but I mean, they can't for years. And now it's just, I mean, they're looking around and it's pulverized, right? So this particular plan has very specific and very recognizable people that have intended to be in key roles in the way things they hoped had operated here in the future. It's completely just dissolving all around them. That whole plan that they had, the operation schedule and all of that. Now they know that just the old is gone and the new is just rushing in, and they don't feel they have a place. They don't feel that there's a place for them. That's why you're having so much hit back at this moment. But they definitely, right now, there's only one person in particular, I'm told, that is really saying, no, we have to do this. We have to make sure that this goes forward the way we planned it. And that's because he's really actually supposed to be the one at the top of this new plan. in control.
He
So,
wants to be king.
well, yeah, basic. And how many times have we run across that? But here's my point is I really felt, and I continue to feel, and even more so now, even just over the work that we've worked on today, is that we can make the new come in much faster, and they're not able to get ahead of it and delay. Yes, I agree. Offering to give me a little room and let me work on some transactions. Guys, this has never been about the money for me. So that was a no-brainer for me. It was just a matter of whether I could get certain folks on the line and we could communicate, and that just flowed. And as Danny pointed out, man, this is about doing. So whatever you believe, just set it to the side for a minute and see what's going on and what you feel about it, and then act as you feel to do. My beliefs are gone. They are literally pulverized. And at this point, I'm just moving forward. So it's all about strategy, but it's strategy of heart this time with a little bit of other old strategies mixed in. Okay. At least that's my data.
So I want to ask a quick question then, because the one thing we're watching push right now, and you touched on it in the call earlier, is of course the cryptocurrencies, because their accounts are fucking empty. So when all this is all empty over here, you got to create something new. They can't, as we've talked about before, they can't remirror the system because the mirror is fucking broken and empty. So they got to come up with something new. And now we're seeing this massive push. And when Russia announced that they're going to put out their own federal, if you will, cryptocurrency, my jaw hit the floor. And I was like, oh, snap. This is where they're going. Make a new financial system, make it all electronic, but it'll be new. Is that what the push is? Is that where they think that they can save themselves by creating a whole electronic currency thing and therefore kind of push all the other stuff off to the side?
Okay, well, in a very brief and concise statement, is that after World War II.
Is she literally doing that?
What? Okay.
It's okay, good.
They basically, that's why the UCC was created and all the international equivalents, is because parts of the universal commercial conversion system that you guys nobody really knows about or remembers, at least, this whole currency thing is much bigger than you think. It's not just planetary. Well, they got cut out. As of 2012, they got cut out, and now they're just trying to jump over all of their former protocols and applications to try to get into the universal system directly, because that's what the UCC and all the international equivalents was basically to keep things planetary and keep things non-planetary. So that's why you're about to see some big stuff come in, and that was America's biggest problem back in 2009 was China and Russia started to declassify documents of people they were working with. And America was like, how are we going to explain they're going to hate us. How do we explain to them? We covered all this up for all these years. So this whole thing about currencies and the financial systems, it's much more than that at all. So this is all about currency, but not in dollars and euros, guys.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt here because we just got something posted into one of the Skype rooms. And I'm going to read it out. I've only just quickly scanned it for a second, but what is this? Consumer scam alert. Do not use Federal Reserve routing account numbers to pay bills. Could face late fees and other charges. For immediate release, July 12, 2017. Recently, the Federal Reserve banks have received a number of unauthorized transactions in which consumers have tried to use the Fed's routing numbers and their social security numbers to pay their bills. It is important for consumers to know that when making online or e-check bill payments, they cannot use Federal Reserve routing numbers. Federal Reserve routing numbers are used for sorting and processing payments between banks. Interesting. Interesting angle. Any video, text, email, phone call, flyer, or website that describes how to pay bills using a Federal Reserve banking routing number or using an account at the Federal Reserve Bank is a scam. Right. The Federal Reserve provides banking services only for banks. Individuals do not have accounts at the Federal Reserve. Oh, isn't that interesting? The bill payments being attempted using the Federal Reserve's routing numbers are being rejected and returned unpaid. Consumers who have attempted to use the Fed's routing numbers to pay their bills may be subjected to penalty fees from the company they were attempting to pay. And then there's a woman's name, or a man's name, I'm not sure, and a contact phone number. So, I don't know. Maybe give them a call, Heather.
Yeah, I will. Is it in, what room is it in? Am I in that room?
It's in the original network room in Skype.
Okay, I'll go get it. We can have some fun. I got to tell you though, banking's about as fun and interesting to me right now as courts and trials. So I have my eye on something that my heart's been set on for a while, but I will go in and check it out. Thanks.
Cool. So does anyone else have any questions that they want to bring up?
Yeah.
Specific to this conversation? Yeah, Lisa.
Firstly, there's obviously a lot of people outside the US asking and trying to figure out, how to correlate. Has anything come up for anybody outside the US? Because a lot of countries do not even have a 9-digit identifying number.
I don't think anything has, but I don't have, like I said, so far from what I've seen, I haven't seen anything 100%.
And I'm not aware of anything according to, all the people I'm in contact with.
Okay. Second question, the trust documents that you've done up for Randy are the ones that you're going to release, right?
The documents that I sent over to you today, plus you also have the scanned originals that Randy gave to all these guys. There's a few changes in there because I left out 2 numbers. And so I corrected all that. You guys have the corrected version. That's the one. And it's in my name, obviously, but that is the one that is perfect as of this moment. Maybe I'll find something else that's missing or whatever, but by the actual UCCs, which I sent you all, they actually have all the numbers of every UCC that's involved. So the title is perfect and it's all inclusive.
Now, just in Randy's case, for example, the bank for the RV company that he purchased from are satisfied with the documents that they've received?
Actually, just as you guys were speaking, which is why I had to ask what the question was again, was because I had just received an email from the Whitney Bank corporate security officer. And of course, they don't identify themselves as what they are. So I had to actually get her to identify herself on a phone call, which apparently was recorded. So you're going to end up hearing that. And she was the the corporate security officer for the RV Coach Company's bank. She just sent me an email after everything that's been sent, which are in the hands of a number of people at this moment, is that, okay. She wrote me saying, "Thank you very much for the information you have provided. I have placed all the documents you have supplied via email in a case file. Whitney Bank Corporate Investigations has marked this case closed based on the provided information." And then I sent her another email, which you guys have as well. And it's a precipice, and a precipice is an order. And I highlighted her, "Whitney Bank Corporate Investigations have marked this case closed based on the provided information." I said, it says, "Lauren, to complete the records of all involved and for complete transparency, as we agreed via telephonic conference on July 11th, 2017, forthwith identify the allegation initiating the investigation and all subsequent allegations included for investigation and the findings causing the case to be closed, and define and identify specifically in particular all that constitutes the provided information." I said, in further transparency, I will email you and Brad a recording of the telephonic conference that I was recently made aware exists to complete your files. I'm going to make all this stuff public, you guys, because like I said, we have to deal with this real time as we're doing this. I'm going to let you see exactly how I'm handling everything right now. And, you know, and just at least you can see one way. And mind you, there's not one right way or wrong way. Go with how you feel, and we're going to get this done. Okay.
So can I just clarify in layman's terms, that means, yes, the trucking company or the RV company and their bank are completely satisfied that everything is in order, case closed, they're happy.
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't know what the allegations were. I don't know, you know, that first off, the bank even called us in the first they were told Randy had authorized the return of the money. That was done via Fed wire, which Fed wires, once they're processed, they're irrevocable. Okay. So when someone tells that notice you just read, Danny, cracks me up, because every single fucking routing number is a Fed routing number.
Yeah.
It's the Fed system routing number. So when they say don't use Federal Reserve routing numbers, I kind of sit there going, who the fuck wrote this notice? Like, is someone sleeping at the attorney's office? I don't know. Okay. No, Lisa, I don't know if they're satisfied or not. All I know is they told me they wanted to shut their case, because in these emails you'll see, I let them know that basically I intimated that they're now involved in the injuries that Randy has suffered and the factualized trust has suffered. And I'm coming. So I don't know if they're satisfied or not. I know they're closing shit down so that they hope that I won't even think about, twice about them. But for this bank doing what they did, and I have to assume at this point they're all in collusion. U.S. Marshals, FBI, DOJ. I worked with DOJ during the investigations. And I can tell you from my experience with them, they're as dirty as they come. Now, there are people inside who aren't. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. That's my experience. I'm just stating as it is. But I also know there's clean ones inside that are actually helping everyone. And the stronger we are, the more willing they are to come out and be transparent and work directly. That's all I can tell you.
So transparency and making things public and bringing awareness is our best method of bringing this to a closure. So when we post our payment receipts and our experiences on Facebook, that becomes part of the public record. You are expressing, and a lot of these entities are monitoring these Facebook rooms, these chat rooms. So when you post those things there, you are effectively communicating and publicizing your truth. So use what we have.
I wouldn't say even your truth. You're making visible and expressing your power. There's a difference. Because as Danny pointed out, we all hold different truths. But this is where we can come together by expressing our power and having that power unified.
Yep. I agree. Sonia Parker, do you still have your hand up?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Sonia.
Oh, great. I was just listening to everything Heather has to say, and I've been working with the UCCs and so far and so on, just like she has been, and I was kind of running around in a circle. But I did find that U.S. Treasury accounts do work, but there is a catch to it. You have to use 22 as for checking and 32 if you can select savings for all of your ACH accounts. And you can't link it, which I have not been able to do, to a pen pal account or anything like that, because it is the U.S. Treasury for debt, public debt. But however, I was able to make purchases with the account, which really shocked me by surprise, because I actually received something that I purchased. So I am kind of confused, because I am one of the people who are successful with this system. And I don't know why. I filed the UCC, but that was only to claim my birthright. It wasn't, I didn't send in my POA. I did not send in the secure information and all of that, because to me, I felt like if I make myself known that I'm operating in a private sector, then that actually would take away my rights as a common natural law person, a person that's a Holy See person, you know? So I didn't want to go further with that. But I did want to share this information because I feel like that in my spirit and in my soul, everybody should know to do this. And a lot of people are feeling like that their backs are backed up to the corner, or they feel like they're going to get in trouble for doing it. But I've had some run-ins where I had to talk to the risk management department as well, and received a threatening letter one time before, but that was for the AV4. So I've been able to successfully represent myself without even having to go to court. I don't even show up in court. I'm like Harvey Dent, So I just wanted to share that information with anybody. I didn't know if anyone that was able and successful in doing what I'm doing.
Cool. No, thank you, Sonia, for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Oh, can Sonia post her process in a detailed fashion somewhere?
Yeah.
I did try to reach out to Harvey Dent, but I know that he's so busy. He has a lot of different things going on, just so I can get that information. I actually have it lined out, and I just didn't want to put myself out there and everybody's kind of running after me for the process. So I wanted to at least get it out there where someone can post it and kind of help everybody that can actually filter through their emails, because I don't have the type of time to do that. I can help you get you started, but I don't have time to hold people's hand and babysit them and walk them through baby steps on how to get this started.
No, but for example, I mean, if you just do a write-up that people,
I do.
Right, and there's a write-up like this was the process I did, and I know someone else who's in the Unfuckers room, she wrote out what she had done, and I'm going to contact her tomorrow morning and say, look, can you just flesh that out a little bit more of exactly what it was that you did?
Okay.
Just as just for information, for transparency, for other people to look at and go, do I want to go this way? Do I not want to go this way? Is this an option? Is this something I'm comfortable with? Not all information on the table, then people have more information to make an informed choice over.
Okay, right. I do already have that set up, but also to throw out at people, using that Social Security card on the front of it is not getting people a lot of success. But if you flip it over, take that alphabet off and use just the number and attach the two precinct numbers that identify an account, whether it's a checking or a savings. See, that's what people have been doing wrong. They use their Social Security number and a FRB routing number, which was not working. See, I've been playing with the system for a very long time. I would pay the bill and then go in there and pay, play around with the system. And then that's how I was able to recognize what was being paid and how and what my process that I was using to get this done. And I've been successful for a very long time with discharging debt successfully. And a lot of people thought it's because I claimed my birthright, which has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody will see some type of success, because the number on the back of that card without the alphabet, forget trying to utilize that first number on the front of that card. It's the back number that's on the back of that card that is tying to these accounts. Right. I don't know if anyone knew that, but that's what is being tied in. It's not so much as the Social Security number itself on the front of the card.
Yep. No, I mean, all of this information, like I said, it's when you get people sharing information, people each have their own, right? Everyone has their own little piece that they can bring to the table sometimes on stuff like this.
Hey, Sonia, I sent you my email in a private message. If you can send me the document that you have, and I'll get it out into the Skype groups and over to the bloggers, and I'll disseminate it and share it for you. My email is in your private message on the Zoom chat.
Okay, I'm new at this, but believe me, I am going to try to figure it out. This is my first time logging into Zoom. I had never had the program. And so when it told me that you guys were live, scroll up to the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll come up to you from Brian Kelly to you, and it'll say private next to it. So you'll just have to scroll up until you see the private. And then you'll
got it.
Just click on the little chat button at the bottom of the window.
Okay. I don't know if I'm doing that right. No, I think I'm all in the wrong thing. I think what I'm
Send it
going to have to
again,
do.
Brian, so it shows new.
Yeah, just type it out again, Brian.
Sonia, do you see the chat? Do you have your chat window open or no on the right-hand side of the screen?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's the start. So at the bottom of the video screen, scroll your mouse across and there will be a little bubble that says chat on there. You got to click that and it'll open up your chat window. Or Sonia, maybe this is easier. Well, I don't know if you want to share your email publicly.
Well, Sonia, send it to me. And my email address is really easy. It's Dani, DANI, @rts.earth.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, what is it again? You said it's DAN.
DANI at
Okay.
RTS
All right.
.earth.
.earth. Okay, got it. And
Send it to me, and I'll make sure I get it to Brian and to everyone else.
Okay, now it will have a last name on there. So I guess what I need to do is say urgent. I'll put urgent in all caps for you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to be coming from a different email address, if that makes sense. Is that way?
Not a problem, man. I will go looking for it tomorrow. Tomorrow, because it's already 1 o'clock in the morning here for me. Oh, it's 1:11.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm going to do it right now. So let me figure out how to get out of this to do this. But you have a good day, and everyone else will rest a good night. And I'm going to send this information to you right now. Okay.
Thanks, Sonia.
You have a great day.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Alvi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to make, I guess, a statement out there to the beings that are trying to block this. You know, this is not just for a few individual peoples in this group. I mean, these people got to realize that are calling the shots, and the people underneath them blocking or trying to block this, that they can access this too. It's not just us individually, it's the whole planet. It's everybody on the planet that's going to access this. And so they're forgetting that they're also blocking for their grandparents, for their kids, for whoever has access to a social security account to begin with, which is easy. But, you know, we all have the accounts. And so what they're forgetting is, okay, well, I'm just doing my job. Well, you're doing your job to block it. Well, why don't you do your job and actually help us turn this on its head so we can all access it? Then you can access it, your kids can access it, your grandparents and whoever else that you love. And that's my biggest thing in this whole thing. People forget to be nice to other people, and they think, well, this is just my job. Well, it's just ridiculous. It's time to think beyond that. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, I so agree with you on that one. Jane just put a comment in here. Okay, now that everything's going completely crazy in the chat room. And Jane, you just said you need to be walked through the process because you're clueless, right? That's specifically why I called on the people tonight that I did. So I asked Brian and Bob and Lisa and obviously Heather, because these are people who have been deep down this rabbit hole, who understand the fundamentals behind it, so that when if they're coming up with issues, they already have a very broad comprehension of the who, what, where, why, when, and how, which makes it easier to be able to think on your feet and be able to deal with issues as they come up. And that's kind of one of the things. This is what I'm saying. For me, this is a lot like in the realms of when a lot of people, when they use like courtesy notices and things like that, and they didn't fundamentally understand and comprehend the situation with, like, for example, their house being under foreclosure, etc. So when it comes up, they were not able to stand there and actually stand in their power, stand in their knowing, and be able to literally put it on the table and be like, I know this whole frickin' scheme. and I know that I'm right. And that's a difference. And that's what I would personally prefer to not see people rush into doing stuff like this that we're talking about, okay, with like the Federal Reserve accounts, etc., unless they fully comprehend it. Now, we've had multiple people in the chat room. I've seen comments go by where people are asking about what a straw man was, or what is this? Why do we have these accounts? If you don't understand that, you're not, I'm sorry, point blank, you're not ready to take the step, because you don't comprehend the whole background to the conversation. And you are not going to be able to stand in front of anyone and say, I have my rights. This is mine. You can't tell me otherwise, because that comes with all the research, really. It really, really does. Guys, I think at 1:15 in the morning, I think I'm going to say we're going to end this conversation now. And I'm sure this is all going to be played out again. And I'm sure that we're going to be right back doing more stuff on this very, very soon, and more conversations, because I think we've just cracked the shell on this. We've just cracked into a little bit of this. Look, Brian's got caffeine in him. He must have caffeine in him now. Either that or he's not listening to us at all.
Thank you for completing the deja vu circle, everyone. 2013 all over again. It's good to see everybody's faces, and happy to be back. Thanks, Dee.
No problem. Thanks for being back. So that's it for tonight. Guys, like I said, we've only just started the conversation, and there were a lot of different conversations started during this, and everyone's going to have their own piece that they're going to want to focus on. Cameron, can you mute your iPhone? Because I don't know what that sound is, but holy crap. Oh, thank you. No, what? I don't know what that sound is, but holy crap, that's going to make me nuts. But I'm not obsessive compulsive at all. Shh.
You're the host, dude. You can mute everyone?
No, I'm not the host. JC is the host.
Oh, okay.
And we don't have a mute all on this account. And don't ask me why we don't have a mute all. I have no fucking clue. It's been a problem. Apparently we have a semi-pro account. It's not the pro account. It's like, only half and half. So did someone, Jane, did you have a question? Do you want to ask your question, Jane? Or not? She's typing. She's manically typing.
Danny, can I come in and say something?
Yes, Carl.
Okay. Obviously, I've listened to the show from the beginning. I just wanted to point out something that you touched on there as well at the end, that this information can be very, very dangerous if you have no clue what you're actually doing. One of the things that I brought out that people don't necessarily realize is that banks, the bank account itself is not yours. It's the bank's. When you put money in it, it is gifted to them. And if they decide that they're going to shut down that bank account, any money that's in it doesn't necessarily get returned to you. So if you're going to do this and attach any kind of an account to this federal account, then make sure that there's no money in it, or you don't mind losing it. That's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was, right now this is more specifically centered around US, and obviously everybody's scrambling to try and find the codes for the UK and blah blah. By all means, everybody search, but again, the best thing for us to do is try and clarify the numbers, and then try and confirm that it works before we release information that everybody goes out to try and it all goes wrong. Because yeah, we want this to work, but there's no point screwing around with it and putting incorrect information in, because when all said and done, we're all supposed to be acting as responsible adults. And if we're just acting like children, stamping on a keyboard to put numbers in just so we can get money, doesn't look so good. Just my 2 cents, that's all.
Well, I mean, that's one of the points I wanted to make, is the fact of, if you're trying to do this with a PayPal account, and your PayPal account is like something that just kind of sits there and you just don't care about it, fine. Use it as a test base. But if it's something that you use every day, you say you've got your business tied to it, something like that, perhaps you don't want to make that choice, because if PayPal goes in and locks you out of your account, which, me, I just got my PayPal account back after 15 months. 15 months, finally just got it back last week. Yay! Needless to say, I'm not going to try this with that PayPal account, because they've already proven they like to just randomly shut my accounts down. So you make a responsible choice and make it fully knowing that you could have issues, and that the assholes could do something completely fucking stupid, like shut down your account or freeze your account, etc. We've talked to several people here tonight who've talked about accounts being frozen, etc. So it is important to be fully informed, and it's important to be fully responsible for your own actions and the choices that you make. JC, could you unmute Jane, please? She's been trying to unmute, and apparently she can't make herself unmuted. Jane, I think you're unmuted. Jane? You're unmuted, hun. No, she's not unmuted. Apparently she's now muted. Okay, Jane, your Zoom is possessed, or your computer is. I'm sorry. Apparently you're not allowed to ask a question tonight.
Okay, wait. Can you hear me now? Oh, what a trip. I've been over here pressing all kinds of buttons. Okay. I just wanted to clarify, because you said, you said, or Heather said, or whoever said, if you don't know what you're getting into, or you don't understand, then you shouldn't get involved. You know what I mean? So it's that, I take that, it kind of scared me away. You know what I mean? Because I want to know more, and I
then know more. Then you do your research so that you know what you're doing. That's a different thing.
I know, but when we hear of stories like Heather and Randy and all them, damn, getting yanked out of a, yeah.
Well, like I said, Randy made a choice. He and Heather fully discussed it. Oh, I've got really bad feedback coming through.
Oh, that might be me.
Randy went big as well.
He went big, and he tested. He tested the water in the way deep end of the pool, and he knew what he was doing. Randy is a very educated person who knows all about this stuff. He made an informed decision to push the boundaries, to set the test precedent, and do it this way. He made a choice with full knowledge and taking full responsibility, and made sure that Heather had the information to make it public after the fact, so that everyone else can see as well.
Right.
Right.
But would you agree though that probably the majority of us in the UU group doesn't understand this thoroughly?
And that's a choice everyone has to make for themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. No one can make a choice
Hence
for you.
my comment, Jane.
No one can make a choice for you. This is it's been like fucking, oh, I swear I'm just going to record myself and just keep hitting repeat. Everyone has to stand in their own responsibility and full liability for their actions. If you take a choice that you want to do this, then you have to be responsible for making that choice. And only you can be responsible for choosing this. And that's why I say to people, if you go into it full knowing. That's one of the reasons why we did this tonight, is I wanted people to see and understand that there's a lot more at this. This isn't just about watching a video on YouTube and then going and punching in a bunch of numbers in randomly, kind of like what Carl was saying. You don't really know what you're doing, so you start doing some stuff, and then you get an account frozen, and oh gee, it's the account that you use to run your online business. And oh shit, now what the fuck do I do? Because PayPal's going to hold it for however the fuck long they decide to. But it's the same thing with anything you choose to do. If you choose to do a community garden, you have a responsibility when you make that choice that there's going to be things that you may have to deal with, whether it's zoning, whether it's dealing with the local municipality, whether it's dealing with, I don't know, hoodlum street kids who just want to tear apart the tomatoes. Everything that we choose to do, we have to choose to do it knowing and being responsible for the actions that we choose. And this is our problem that I see over and over, is that a lot of people look for a quick fix, but they're not willing to stand there in responsibility. We all need to be responsible on every fucking level of what we're doing. And at this point, we're kind of at the pinnacle of that now. We really, really need to start taking responsibility and doing what we're driven to do, but do it full knowing. And if you have questions, ask questions. It's one of the reasons why we do these discussions, right? The Unfuck It discussion every Wednesday night. Everyone gets together. We fucking talk shit through. What do we think about this? What do we think about that? Talk it through. Go do research. Do what you need to do so that you feel that whatever choice that you're making is the right choice for you, not anyone else, just for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, love. You're welcome. Okay, guys, and now we're at like 1:30 in the morning. So I'm going to say it's the end of the Unfuck It discussion for July 13th. Hey, look, we're already into a new day, at least where I am anyway. Sunday night is the Transpicuous Views. I don't have a guest lined up yet, so God knows what we'll talk about, because, you know, it's usually by the cuff anyways. And of course, next Wednesday is the next Unfuck It discussion. I want to say thank you to Heather and Brian for getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and Lisa for getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and for Bob and everyone else who's come in to share their knowledge. Alex and Val, especially you guys as well, to share like the experience that you guys went through that was unfortunately so horrifyingly traumatic. I want to thank everyone. And right now it's the time of transparency and sharing everything and get all the information out. And yeah, sharing with everyone. That's it, folks. We will see you on Sunday. Bye, guys.